Over 50 heads of state and government and some of the most powerful players in security are descending on the German state of Bavaria this weekend for the annual Munich Security Conference. A security conference is expected to hold for 3 days where current and future global security issues will be discussed. With me here now to talk about the world's most important meeting on security issues is the DW's correspondent Marie Sinner in Berlin. Marie, great to see you. What's top on the agenda of this year's security conference?
On the forefront of leaders' minds at this year's so-called MSC will be the threat made by former U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this week when he said that he would not protect NATO members from a Russian attack if they do not pay their NATO contributions. That statement is casting a dark shadow over the conference, which is happening close to the second anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And in that context, a big question on leaders' minds is how committed the United States still is to Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will be one of the many leaders attending the conference. He is here in Berlin today on his way to the conference. And of course, he's worried about U.S. commitment, not just if Donald Trump returns to the White House, but also regarding what has been happening in Washington, D.C., where U.S. funding for Ukraine's fight remains stalled in Congress. But apart from support packages, the question at the MSC for leaders regarding Ukraine is, what is your new idea? Ukraine is essentially facing a military stalemate right now, and it's hard to see how sending more weapons, more ammunition will resolve the military deadlock. So the question is also, what is a realistic way to move forward?
Yeah, and I've wondered that myself, Marie, all that money going into Ukraine recently. But what else will be front of on the minds of the leaders in Bavaria?
The other big geopolitical flashpoint will be the ongoing war in Gaza between Israel and Hamas. Israeli President Herzog arrived here in Berlin for the conference today as well. And the leaders of the Palestinian Authority will be present and leaders of Gulf states. Now, MSC head Christoph Heusgen said on German radio this morning that he is hoping for unofficial bilateral meetings to take place between the different parties involved in the war on the sidelines of the conference. And the conference is happening during a week where we saw much condemnation of Israel's plans to launch a larger military offensive in Rafah, which is a city home to over 1 million displaced Palestinians. U.S. President Biden has called on Israel to come up with a protection for these civilians. So Israel is under mounting pressure regarding its offensive. And that's a particularly difficult issue for Germany as the host country. Germany has been one of the most pro-Israel voices around the table in Europe, also because of its historical responsibility to Israel after the Holocaust. And currently there is no one united voice in Europe regarding the conflict. So Germany will be aware of the fact that it has to balance very, very differing viewpoints this weekend.
Yeah, and this weekend we'll see a lot of leaders attending, this meeting, over 50 of them, we understand. What makes this conference so popular, Marie?
Well, for one, we are seeing more conflicts happening around the world right now than we did in the last 3 decades. So there is a kind of particular need for this forum at the moment. Christoph Heusgen, the head of the conference, wants to use it as a way to look for multilateral solutions to these conflicts. The slogan of the MSC is peace through dialogue. And what's special about the MSC is that it doesn't require a declaration by attendees at the end of the conference. So it serves as a forum for discussion, a place to exchange ideas, which means the stakes are lower and the pressure is off in a way. Now, that could pave the way for more collaboration. The other way to look at it is that it could also contribute to a general sort of aimlessness. And at the same time, it's of course questionable whether a 3-day event is time enough during such a gloomy geopolitical period.
I agree, Marie. Thanks again, Marie Sinner of the DW in Berlin. Here in Africa, a court has ruled Senegal's election postponement unlawful. The Constitutional Court annulled President Macky Sall's decree and contentious bill passed by Parliament, moving the vote to December. Mr. Sall had announced he was postponing the election because of what he claimed were concerns over the eligibility of opposition candidates. Widespread protests against the postponement have beleaguered the West African country, at once considered a bastion of democracy in the region. Mr. Sall had reiterated he was not up for another term, but his critics accuse him of either attempting to cling to power or unduly influence his successor. Mr. Sall has been president since 2012. His second term in office ends in April. The mayor of the London Borough of Southwark recently met with members of Nigeria's diaspora community in the UK to address the issue of out-of-school children. Our correspondent Teniola Oyitaya was there and now reports.
The issue of out-of-school children remains a significant challenge in Nigeria. It's a crisis the mayor of the London Borough of Southwark, Michael Shitu, says requires urgent and collective action to surmount.
Education allows you as an individual to realize your full potential. No matter how challenging an environment is, and Nigeria has its challenges in itself, we need all hands on deck. You can't have all hands on deck if people do not have the opportunity to be a key member of society, to be a constituent, contributing member of society. So whether you like Nigeria at its current state, or you dream about a Nigeria which is yet to be, the solution lies in education.
Ibironke Adeagbo, CEO of the charity IA Foundation, highlights the costly repercussions of out-of-school children, drawing parallels to insecurity and poverty.
133 million people in Nigeria are living in poverty out of 200 and something million. And that's because if you don't get education, you cannot increase your standard of living. You cannot become economically active. You cannot take care of yourself and your family. So you will live in abject poverty. So if we don't want that poverty to recycle itself, we need to pick those kids up. We need to put them in the classroom. They don't belong on the streets. Because those children of those days that were roaming the streets, nobody paid attention to them. Those children have now grown up. They have no skills. They are not economically active. Therefore, the only thing they can do is to resort to crime. So no prizes for guessing why we have a high level of insecurity in Nigeria today.
Celebrating the 5-year anniversary of the NGO, Nigeria's acting High Commissioner to the UK, Ambassador Cyprian Tessa, acknowledges the progress made so far, stressing the importance of the foundation.
It is incontrovertible that education is the cornerstone of economic growth and national development of any nation. Therefore, we must acknowledge the transformative power of quality education and its pivotal role in shaping the future of our nation. The IA Foundation has been remarkable in addressing this vital issue through the provision of education to less privileged children in slums and underserved communities across Nigeria. IA Foundation, your efforts to tackle barriers to education is indeed applauded and acknowledged.
Nigerian donors in attendance urge others in the UK diaspora community to also strive to make a difference.
We in diaspora, anything, no amount of money you have or contribute is too small. It's important. We know what the exchange rate is talking about now. We know what it is. And it goes a long way in Nigeria. So, let's not say it's the government's responsibility alone. We as individuals, as organizations, we can do something as well. We can partner with government. We can do something on our own. But the end goal is to get these kids off the streets into education. It is very important.
When you consider the amount that they need back home, it's something that you can afford. A dinner out for one family one night would probably pay a school fees of someone for a term, if not a year. I don't know how any other way to put it, but to say to people, think about it. Think about putting a smile on somebody's face.
Over the past 5 years, the foundation has assisted over 100 children by taking them off the streets and covering their school fees and other necessities. With increased funding, they aim to reach more children.
We've picked up about 105 now. The statistics is 20.2 million. So 105 is a drop in the ocean. So as we said today at the presentation, we want to be able to pick up 1,000 children every year. And we want to work collaboratively with the government, because at the end of the day, it's the government's responsibility to educate its citizens. But government can't do it alone. So we are here to support the government to make sure we can dent that 20.2 million. It's embarrassing. It's just not acceptable.
In a bid to tackle the crisis, IA Foundation officials also plan to meet UK lawmakers in March to lobby for more international intervention.
A bill has been introduced to the United States Congress urging a comprehensive review of the bilateral relationship between the U.S. and South Africa. This move comes in the wake of the International Court of Justice ruling, which suggested the plausibility of Israel committing acts of genocide against Gaza. The bipartisan bill has raised concerns over South Africa's potential to benefit from the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Musa, has more.
The bipartisan bill potentially threatens South Africa's eligibility for benefits under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. Economic analyst Professor Bonke Dumisa argues that this represents the weaponization of trade.
When countries will want to just throw their weight around and say is either an enemy of my enemy is my friend, and if ever you disagree with what I say, you are already an enemy. And the issue of AGOA was introduced in order to benefit South Africa. But we must quickly accept that this was not just out of the charity of the United States of America. One major thing which many South Africans do not know is that the existence of AGOA has created more jobs in the United States than the jobs in South Africa.
The bill requires President Joe Biden, in consultation with key officials, to assess whether South Africa's actions undermine U.S. national security or foreign policy interests. The question remains, will it gain traction in Congress?
I actually do not believe that the whole Congress is going to pass this thing. And I think I heard elsewhere that President Joe Biden, even though he is so unpredictable these days, that has said that he has no appetite for this.
We need to take charge of our own agenda. Africa as a continent potentially is not a poor continent. We have resources, we have food, we have agriculture, we have a lot of things that the rest of the world needs. But we also need to move away from this thing that says, why can't we first look at whether we can source products on the continent before we go outside of the continent, right?
The bill accuses the ANC of aligning with Hamas and the Russian Federation, criticizing the stance on Israel and alleging anti-Semitic remarks. The ANC and the South African government have historic ties with the Palestine Liberation Organization. Now, the U.S. Embassy in South Africa declined to comment, awaiting response from the African National Congress and the government. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
And that's the world today. See you next week.